Hey, book babes. I'm Aubrey,
And I'm Peyton.
and today we are pulling out the emotion wheel and giving you book recs based on your mood.
Yes, so cheers with a cup of coffee as we dive between these paper sheets. Let's do this. Alrighty, hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Hardcover Podcast. Today we are doing a purely Rex episode. There will be no spoilers. We are giving Rex based off of mood, and I am a mood reader through and through. I will give a book. It's like in high school, and they're like, "You have to read this." It's like, okay, I'm a reader, but I'm not in the mood to read that.
Yeah, I
So
don't want that one.
not
Ugh.
that one. So this is the perfect episode to dive into these books that help affirm our deepest emotions. So yes, no spoilers, just Rex.
Yes. All right. So, jumping into it, we are starting off with happy. What are you reading when you're just feeling good? This is like my perfect state as a reader. Like, this is when it's like you just finished a book and you're like, no, I'm ready to dive into the next one.
Yes.
Peyton, what do you have?
Okay, so books that just make me happy when I read
Yeah.
them.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't take too much effort. Like, I love that we're doing emotions because we could perceive emotions differently when it comes to reading.
Oh, yeah.
So
I've like
yeah.
there's someone here where I'm like, I don't know if I did this right, but whatever.
No, but like it's true to you. Like, I'm affirming your
Yes.
emotions and saying that, like, this author, this book, like, it makes me happy, and
Mhm.
I would read it again if I wanted to be happy. And I'm sorry, but that is Happy Place by Emily Henry. I'm
You
going
just did it for the
I did
pun.
it for the pun, and it was really easy to think of. A lot of these emotions you'll see, or like feelings, or just vibes in general, were hard. The books were hard to come up with. But Emily Henry is an author, and her books, I have fun while reading the books, and
Yeah.
that makes me happy. I could say the same for Taylor Jenkins Reid's books. They're just good books. They make me happy. But TJR's books can go a little depresso espresso, whereas Happy Place here in Hem, she's here for a good time.
Yeah.
And they're fun reads. I love Happy Place. Highly, highly recommend this book. I'm sure everyone and their mother has read this book by now. But Emily Henry, this one I think is my favorite Emily Henry book too. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
It's definitely I think the one you rated the highest.
Yeah, love that. I know. I had to do it. I had to do it to
Had
him.
to do it. Have it happy. Okay. So I kind of took this at a little bit of a different approach. I was thinking like if I'm feeling happy, like if I'm feeling good in my reader's state, what am I reaching for as mood readers? And I think to me that's always just going to be like my classic fantasy. Like if I'm feeling good, like this is I just want to read what it will probably end up being like that the 4-star fantasy. You know what I mean? Like I'm not in a reader slump where I'm like this next book better be a 5-star reader. I'm losing it. I just want something good. I want
What
good
makes you
classic
happy? Yep.
fantasy. And I think the best example of that is Realmbreaker by Victoria Aveyard. This is like a Lord of the Rings inspired ex Guardians of Galaxy story, where basically the heroes all die in the prologue trying to save the world. And so now the B team has to step in and try to do it instead. It's got a villain romance, which is like so
The
perfectly.
best.
The series just finished. It's a trilogy. And I still like routinely think about one of the main villain characters. Like they just like live rent free in my mind because of how like perfectly she did their arc. Yeah. I don't know what else I'm saying. But I think this is great. I think if you're in a happy, good mood, sometimes Victoria Aveyard books, like there's a lot going on in each chapter. And so I'll read a chapter and feel content and put the book down until like I'm very close to the end. So I think this isn't one to go into if you're like headed towards a reading slump. I would say just pick it up if you're in like a good, happy mood.
Sweet. That's Aubrey's happy mood book. Sword.
Book that every like so many characters die in the prologue is my happy book.
Hey, whatever makes when they say like whatever makes you happy.
Yeah.
If you're happy, I'm happy. All right, the next one is depressed. What book when we're
Depressed.
depressed, what are we reaching for? Um, I'm reaching for chick lit. Um,
Yeah.
anything woman centric.
Mhm.
That's why I was like, maybe TJR is more depressed than happy. Um, I think happy for me, I just wanted an easy read. Emily Henry's such an easy read. But for this, I had a couple. The one book I really wanted to do is A Man Called Uva, but I don't have that
Mhm.
and I want to show you. So I'm gonna actually do lessons in chemistry. Um,
Okay.
this book, um, like I read, it was one of our book club books, and I read it during a month where I was like, ugh, not doing well. And it
Mm.
actually was like very affirming because this book holds a lot of deep content. And I'm the type of
Yeah.
person that when I'm sad, I'm listening to sad music. When I'm
Yes.
sad and depressed,
Mhm.
I'm reading a sad book. And as much as this book is amazing, it's equal parts depressing. Like it is. There are
Yeah.
some really
Yeah.
interesting topics in here. But I think chick lit really dives deep into like the woman's psyche and what it means to be a woman, and especially being a woman in the 50s. Like this book
Mhm.
takes place. Highly recommend this book. This is still to date like my favorite book club read. Loved
Yeah.
it, was obsessed with it. Highly, highly recommend. And also get this cover because this cover's better than all the rest.
Oh, they have that one or one like that in hardcover at Barnes& and Noble
Is
now.
it the
It's not
blue
the pink
one?
one. Yeah.
$30. I want that one
Yeah.
so bad. It's the collector's edition, guys. It is so cute. But I love this book. Highly recommend. I could go
No, that
into it
one's
for an
really
hour,
good.
but we have a book review of it up
Yes.
on. We also have Happy Place, I think, a book review of that.
Mhm.
So if you want to see our in-depth thoughts on a lot of these books, but especially these two, um,
Yes.
we have some.
Continuing that train, we do have our full review of Funny Story by Emily Henry.
Ooh,
If I'm depressed, I think that I go 2 ways. One, which would be like Peyton has, sinking further into it, and I have a book for that. But if you're feeling, like, really bad and you just, like, wanna get out of it, you need something that is short and easy and will make you feel good about, like, returning to the page, I would recommend a Emily Henry. I think you get a certain point into these books, and then I'm always like, "Nope, I wanna finish this." Like, I wanna read this in one day. I wanna sit down and consume a good love
accomplish something.
story. Yes, yes, that honestly, if you're feeling depressed, being able to, like, watch your Goodreads challenge tick up is the best feeling.
Yeah, Emily Henry gets you out of a book slump. Like book slumps put me in a depressed state.
Yeah.
And I think reading an Emily Henry, like I know every April, May, I'm like, I'm gonna be out of this book slump. And then May is like my most read, like I read the most books
Yeah.
in like May and June because of that.
Mhm.
But now I'm entering it back. So like Emily Henry, if you want to release your book a little early, maybe you could help my reading goal out at the end of the year here.
Yes. Okay, so that's if you wanna feel good.
Okay,
If you wanna
what's
feel bad,
bad? So
if
bad.
you want to have your feelings of depression portrayed painfully accurate on the page, and if you're in I think you also have to be in one of the moods where you don't wanna do anything but read.
Yes.
Like, but read or watch TV. You are ready to just lock in, turn your brain off, and just read a story. Maybe not turn your brain off. You need your brain for this one. But if all you wanna do is, like, rot in bed and read a book and feel represented in your depression, I think that's the perfect time to read Way of
Oh
Kings by
my
Brandon Sanderson.
gosh.
Now, she is 1,000-page long.
Oh my god.
She does have one of the most complex world building systems out there. The main character is severely depressed, though. He's going
Oh.
through it. I mean, I would also say if you're feeling really, really bad, trigger warnings, um, but this main character, Kaladin, he is a depressed girly to the max. He's had a really rough life, and even when things are good, he's
But
having a
yeah.
rough life,
Oh.
as those of us with depression can relate to. Um, and I think this is Brandon Sanderson's, like, Bible type thing. This is his legend. This is what he will be known for forever. And so if you're ever like, "Ugh, I need to read the fantasy series of, like, this century. I think it's going to be Stormlight Archive, and I think when you're depressed is a great time to start.
I mean, you're already in bed rotting. Why not
Y
just start
yeah,
a 1,000-page book?
commit
Whatever.
into it.
Get into it. Okay, so we're kind of steering off into something more fun here. If
Yes.
you're feeling very like over the top, campy, sort of like
Yeah.
just
Go
different.
with it. You gotta, like, believe into the world that's being presented a
And
little bit more.
and maybe you need like a side dictionary to kind of understand what's happening in this world because it's so eccentric and so over the top. Campy's stories usually go back to like very like niche horror stories, but Aubrey and
Yeah.
I aren't really into that sort of thing. Um so this was difficult for me because obviously, and I'm assuming what Aubrey's pick is, so I did not pick that. So I'm throwing it back, everyone,
Okay.
to The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. This is a sci-fi, very short book, but this book is so freaking weird, and I wanted to do a
Yeah.
Clockwork Orange, but like we don't need to
Mhm.
talk about a Clockwork Orange on the podcast, guys. Like we don't need to talk about that. So I'm gonna take the more fun route.
Okay.
And we're
Yes.
gonna do some classic science fiction. If you are
Mhm.
interested in science fiction at all, this is a must. It's gonna take you literally 2 hours to read, not even. Um, and yeah, our main character is Arthur, and he goes on this crazy adventure and kind of gets like abducted by aliens. And the thing is, it feels campness. The idea of that
Yeah.
to me feels like um kind of like when you were a kid and your teacher was telling you a story and they were really just over the top with their
Yeah.
gestures, and like this book feels like I'm 5 years old reading it, but it's written for like a 40-year-old. It's deep and meaningful but crazy at the same time, and you're like, what the hell is happening? So
Yeah.
if you're interested at all in the science fiction realm, I know we don't talk about sci-fi a lot here, and I do have another sci-fi book weirdly here today. But
Ooh.
this is where you start and then go have
Yes.
fun. This is the Bible, and then go have fun.
That's so funny because part of Brandon Sanderson's Kickstarter event where he like wrote 4 books in secret during COVID because he's a madman. He wrote a spiff on Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and it's like this guy like from Earth or something who got put in a medieval like universe, but it's all like it's very inspired. I think it's literally called like something's guide to something.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens in this
Um
book. Yeah.
Yes, but it's very heavily inspired based off of that. I think you thought I was going to pick another Kickstarter book?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay, cuz that I do have later on the
I have
list.
later on the list too.
We might have it together at the same spot. Okay. But for camp, I have to go with my
Yep,
Bridgerton.
that's what I thought you were gonna
Okay.
pick. That's why
Okay.
I did not do Bridgerton. When I don't have the books, I knew Aubrey was gonna do Bridgerton.
Yes, and I think I also like the Bridgerton books a lot more than Peyton.
Yeah, I'm not like really recommending them. So
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, I gotta say, the TV show's better. There's something in these books that I just like to fully turn my brain off and enjoy a good Regency romance. Now, gotta have trigger warnings. The men in this are toxic red flags. Julia Quinn did not shy away from like gender stereotypes of the
no, she
time.
was like, "Here you are."
Yeah, yep. So all of the men are like a little like possessive and gross. But if you can look past that.
I recommend the campness of the TV show,
Yes,
and
the
then
TV
read the
show's
books and get
so
mad.
good. Oh, yeah, I would for sure always, like, do the TV show
Which
first.
is crazy.
Yes, crazy. I think this was my favorite, though, Romancing Mr. Bridgerton, and that one, we read the book before the TV show came out.
Yes, and we did a review on it.
Yes. And, my favorite thing about this one is that Penelope is the smartest female that we've gotten so far. I've only read what the TV shows have been out. Also, I think if you want something that's less toxic, but you want the same like lighthearted feeling, I did just read Queen Charlotte, which is based off of the TV show. But the TV show came out first, and Julia Quinn then wrote Queen Charlotte as like a companion. So it happened in the opposite direction, and there's literally like everything that happens on the TV show happens in the book, word for word. And then she just like expands the scenes, or you see like a little bit more into their heads and stuff. But so that one's definitely a lot more feminist if you can't handle the red flag men, because it is very
It's a
triggering.
lot. Yeah, I did not know the books were gonna be like that, and I was like, "Wait, where is my Colin Bridgerton? This is not my
Yeah.
Colin." Yeah. Oh, crazy. No, I knew you were gonna. I was like, I'm gonna
Okay.
let her have that. I feel like a good
Yeah.
equivalent to that is like if anyone's ever heard of Crazy Rich Asians.
Yeah.
I think those books could be very like they're kind of over the top, crazy, fun. And if you have
Mhm.
ever seen that movie, very in line with Bridgerton to the fact of like, whoa, holy shit! It's kind of like The Great Gatsby, where you're like, wait, what? Like what?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Very, very. But we're gonna go from like eccentric, crazy to the opposite. What are you picking up when you are bored and you're
Yes.
bored of reading, you're bored of life, you're
Yes.
bored. I'm never bored, but if I am bored, what are we picking up?
Couldn't
Okay.
be me, but like if you suckers are bored, um
Are you like bored? Sometimes I get bored of reading. I do. It's usually when I'm back to back with my fantasy novels and I need a good
yes.
palate cleanser. Now, the book I want to recommend, I don't have here. So I'm going to recommend this
Ooh.
author, and that is Riley Sager. When I'm
Yes.
bored, you best believe I'm picking up a Riley Sager book. I just finished House
Mhm.
Across the Lake. I am recommending Middle of the Night. We also have a book review of this one. Aubrey and I read this together. I'm recommending The Only One Left. That book
Yes.
is amazing. It's my favorite Riley Sager book. The cover is even cooler than this one. Absolutely obsessed with these books. Highly recommend. They are the right amount of mystery, thriller, and just good fucking writing. So
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
This is what I'm reading. I'm gonna do a little mystery thriller when I'm bored
Oh,
because
sweet
it's
part.
gonna spice up my life a little bit. You know?
Yes. I wanted to put Powerless in here just because I'm bored reading it.
Oh, I know we should have
Like,
done books we're bored, but I can't recommend a book that I was bored
no,
reading.
no, oh no, don't recommend it. Which is why it's not what I have. So, when I was thinking about books that I want to read if I'm bored, I want something that's incredibly fast paced. I want something that I am just moving through the
Yes.
story that I do not want to put down. And for me, the number one book for fast paced storytelling has got to be Fourth Wing.
Yeah, the best.
This book was intoxicating. The second book does not hold up to the same standards. Um, but this first book, the storytelling, the pacing, the world building, I was obsessed with so much of it. I Peyton and I still love this book series. I think Iron Flame had some work.
It put it down a
It
little bit, which
I
sucks.
put it down a little bit, but I also think second books in a series, especially ones that aren't like duologies or trilogies, can be really hard to carry that like weight and magic of the first book. And I'm hoping that Onyx Storm picks her right back up. But this book, I think I got 40 pages in, and I texted Peyton. I was like, I want to finish this book. Like, I cannot put it down.
Yes.
It's amazing. It is about Violet who's a dragon rider. It's very like nostalgic of Divergent and some of your other favorites. But she's going to this war school and she wanted to be a scribe, but her mom is the general and said, no, your bitch ass is going to be a dragon rider. And she is just trying to survive in this crazy world. Another book that I'm going to throw in here. Oh, I don't have. That's why I was like looking for it, and I was like, it's not here. Um, is one that I just recently read, and it's One Dark Window by Rachel Gilling. This is like a gothic fantasy. It's got a tarot card magic system, and it's about a girl who has a monster in her head. and she gets like thrown into this like crazy little plot to try to steal all of these magical cards. And that book, like, it kept changing what, like, the plot almost not changing what the plot was, but, like, our goalposts kept moving and, like, you're really dived into this, like, creepy gothic setting, and was really unique, and it's only, like, 350 pages or something like
I know, I'm
that,
dying to read
and
it.
so it was so, like, quick to, like, read and consume, and it's on KU.
Yes, we love it. We love KU.
Yes.
Um,
Oh, and the prose in that one is amazing.
I think, yeah, I think those, like, yes, I think if anything here, these are fast-paced reads. Even
Yeah.
like Aubrey's recommendations being some of them fantasy, like they're fast-paced. And I will say about Fourth Wing, like that shit like picks you up and takes you off. The second
Yeah.
book not so much, but the first one, she's ready to slay. All right, the next one is adventurous.
Adventurous.
Oh, it's me. Okay, so I thought I was going to do a fantasy book for this one because it's
Ooh.
adventurous, but
Mhm.
I have I like try to work in this book once a year into every book rec video. And that's Project Hail Mary. I was like, okay, science fiction. I don't really
Hey,
read science fiction that much
gotta
anymore,
represent.
but I have to work in my favorite Andy Weir book once a year. And this is that video. So Project Hail Mary is like I never thought I would like to read a the book basically takes place. There's two like
Mhm.
timeline POVs, but it basically takes place on a spaceship. And you would think that's not really adventurous because he's kind of stuck. And it's a guy. And I usually don't like reading
Mm.
from men's point of view, but
Men.
something about Andy Weir and his ability to storytell. And
Yeah.
this book has I like sidekicks, like little animal
Mhm.
sidekicks, or like that's why I love Disney so much because I love sidekicks, like their little,
Yeah,
companions, like Pua in
companions.
Moana, or Sven in Frozen, or whatever. This kind of has that, and I think it really struck a chord with me. And Ryan Gosling is going to be playing the main character in this.
Ooh.
So Ken will be on the screen playing. I honestly I feel bad. I forget who the main character. Ryland Grace. There it is. Um. So yeah, had to recommend this book. If you don't like science fiction, you'll still like this book. You're gonna go on an adventure, and it's gonna be amazing, and you're gonna thank me for it. So read Project Hail Mary. All right, I'm done
Yes.
for the year.
What I picked is what a book that I think could have fit very easily into camp. Another Brandon Sanderson, Tress of the Emerald Sea. This is becoming, I think it's one of Brandon's like people who don't necessarily read his works have read Tress.
Yes.
Uh, it is the story of Tress. It is a Princess Bride retelling where Buttercup, instead of like kind of not having agency and getting swished around with the plot, decides that she's going to save him herself. And so Tress is a young girl who is set off and joined a pirate ship in order to save her lover. It is cute, it
It's
is
adorable.
whimsical. The voice of this is unlike that you have probably ever read before. It is narrated by a favorite character amongst the Cosmere, which is Brandon Sanderson's universe, because most of his books set place in this same like universal system. Hoyd, if you know, you know, and he has a very like fun narrative storytelling. He talks to you, the reader, as he's telling this. Um, and it's really cute, and I would recommend this to any and everyone.
Yes, very adventurous. Fits the category
Yes.
perfectly. Um, the next one is when you're feeling nostalgic.
Yes.
Feeling that you feel the older you get, you feel more and more.
Mhm.
Um, Nostalgia is a very interesting mood to be in. It's an interesting
Yeah.
feeling to feel for me because nostalgia for me isn't something that I feel and I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna relive my childhood." Usually something reminds me of my childhood. So it's
Yeah.
something I'm consuming now that gives me the feeling of nostalgia, not necessarily I'm consuming something that was nostalgic to me. Because
Yes.
if I was recommending a book based on nostalgia, I'd be holding up Divergent next. But I'm here to recommend something newer. And so this book reminds me a lot of a type of book I would have read when I was in middle school. And that is Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. This
Yes.
book,
We just reviewed this one.
yeah, we just reviewed this one. I love this book. I give it 5 flapping stars. This book reminded me a lot of what I would have gravitated towards as a child.
Yeah.
And so it just, and of course it takes place in high school, and I haven't read that in a while. I used to love like Rainbow Rowell's, like Eleanor and Park. I don't know if any
Oh, yeah,
girl,
yeah, yeah.
people who know will know. Like Fault in Our Stars, like that was my fucking cup of tea. And so Better Than the Movies really just like ignited that nostalgic
Yeah.
feeling for me. It made me feel like I was at home. I grew up watching 90s rom-coms with my dad constantly. And so this book literally starts every chapter with a 90s rom-com reference, or early 2000s. And so
Yes.
this felt like I was back at home on my couch with my books and my family, just
Mhm.
living life. So I highly recommend this book. You all need to read it. It's great.
Yes, that's also, I think, a really good one if you are bored and you
Yes.
just wanna, like you wanna consume a story in a day.
You will. You will eat it
That's a
up.
great one. Okay, I went so it's hard to recommend a nostalgic book because nostalgia kind of is individual in what you experienced, but I think this is a book that personally I read when I was younger and gives me nostalgia vibes. However, the I think it could fit for a lot of people. So, I have Shadowhunters. Specifically, I have what I would consider the best book in the Shadowhunter universe,
It
which
is.
is the Inferno Devices Clockwork Angel book 1. I think even if you didn't read Shadowhunters, any of them as a kid, I think the storytelling of it is very and the world building, it's very reminiscent of the Twilight, Divergent, Hunger Games
Yes.
era.
Mhm.
And so I think you'll feel at home even if you didn't read these as a kid. And what's really special about these is she's still making books in this universe. So while I'm recommending Clockwork Angel, if you haven't read it yet, because I think it's the most beautiful one, it is Shadowhunters is like this war. It's in Earth, but the main characters are part angel, and their job is to slay demons. But there's also like fae and warlocks and vampires and werewolves. Um, in this whole universe, this is a set in the 1810s, so a little bit before Regency, but giving similar like period piece vibes. But if you have already read this one, I would also recommend God, I can't think of the I don't know what the series is called, but it starts with Lady Midnight. That one's set in 2012. I wouldn't start with City of Bones unless you already read City of Bones. Because if you already read it, then it feels like coming home. If not, it's definitely her earlier work, Cassandra Clare's earlier work, and not the best.
Yeah, you're going to be like, "What the hell did you just recommend me?" It gets better though.
Yeah.
It gets
It
better.
definitely gets better. And yeah, I think especially because there's still books being made in this series. If you read it as a kid, you can come and pick back up another one within the series, within this universe, and
You'll love it.
relive that nostalgic
I
vibes.
highly recommend those books. They are amazing. They are my favorites. They still are. I love them.
Yes.
Um, all right. Now we're getting to when you're feeling deep, not depressed, but just maybe like reflective, a little
Yeah.
philosophical, looking
Mhm.
within. I could have pulled out a self-help book. I'm not though because I don't really read those. I do have some
No
though.
one wants that book
I
rack.
do have some, but I don't think anyone wants those. Okay, so I chose
Yes.
Before the Coffee Gets Cold.
Yeah.
I think this is a great, great book. The idea of this book is it's this little cafe in Japan, I want to say, I believe, Japan.
Yeah.
And basically, you are able to visit a person that has passed. You just have to, there's like a timestamp on it. So you can
Mhm.
visit someone that you visited this coffee shop with in the past, but you have to leave before the coffee gets cold or you're kind of stuck as this like ghost in this cafe. So there's like a little bit of world building with this story and it's so short and it's broken up into 4 different people. So there's like a mother and their daughter or son and then there's sisters and there's a husband and wife and
Yeah.
so you're able to see this idea of grief through the eyes of different people and it doesn't follow one character. I mean, like people that work at the cafe, that's kind of your like main group of cast
Mhm.
of characters, but it's just this it's this crazy like time traveling what you would say to someone if you could have one more conversation with them
Yeah.
sort of thing. And you know, you think about that a lot. Like we all have people in our lives, dogs, people, grandparents that have passed on. It's like, oh, what would I say to them if I could talk to them again? What would I tell them?
Mhm.
What would I change? And the whole premise of this is that you cannot change the past and you cannot change the future. You just are
Yeah.
it is what it is. So I love it says what would you change if you could travel back in time? So they say like what could you change? But the idea here is that you can't change what happened. So I don't remember the whole premise. I believe they act the person you're talking to doesn't know that they are dead.
Mm.
So it's kind of like
Interesting.
you just have to you know that they're going to die, but they don't know
Yeah.
that and they don't
Mhm.
understand that. But so it's really great and you can read it. We did a 24-hour reading challenge
Yes.
and I read this one and it was fan freaking tastic. Highly recommend. This is also kind of campy like
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, it's definitely got that, like, Eastern, storytelling, so it, like, re ex God, I don't know words today. Subverts a lot of your expectations for how a narrative should flow, from what I've
Yes.
heard.
Yeah, you're like, "Wait, what? Can you do that?" You're like, "Okay."
Alright, for me, deep, philosophical. I considered doing, like I don't know, like, sometimes deep philosophical, I'm like, "Okay, should I be pulling out, like, a history book? Should I be pulling out, like, men's fiction?" You know what I mean? Like, men's nonfiction? But I was like, "Okay, what does that mean for me?" And for me, deep and philosophical is the book that I wanna read, like, on a fall day in a cafe shop with, like, a beret and, like, a cigar. You know what I mean? Like, I wanna, like, be fully
Yes.
submersed and, like, thinking as I'm reading, and, that has to be Babel by R.F. Kuang.
Yes.
This book is a beast. This book, I feel the most pretentious for having read and completed. It explores the themes of like the necessity of violence and colonialism. It takes place in an alternate Oxford in like the 1900s. I don't know the exact year. The magic system in this is all language based, and like so much of this book has footnotes at the bottom explaining what the fuck she's talking about and different languages and different like historical facts. And this book is crazy and it gets you thinking, and it's so like it's so deep.
It's so
It's
deep.
so deep. For a fantasy book, it's big. It took me a month to read this, and I was, like, dedicating my time to read this. It's a little slow because it's so, like, thick. It's not like yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say it's not boring. It's a little boring.
It's a little boring,
Um,
but
but
it's
it's
you're like, "Oh shit, like I need to pay attention."
yeah, it's a book you have to work for.
Yeah.
And I feel at the time of finishing it, I might have been like, "Oh, that wasn't worth it." But looking back on it, I'm really glad that I have finished
You're
this
like,
one.
"Oh, shit, I did that."
I did that.
Okay, so, we have 3 more.
Yes.
The next one is quirky. When we're feeling a little
Quirky.
quirky, we want a silly, good, fun, quirky kite type of read.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
So,
misinterpreted this prompt.
what's that?
I misinterpreted this
What did
prompt.
you interpret it as?
I thought it was like, "Oh, like, I'm so quirky," like, "Oh, like, look at," like, I thought it was like, "Pick me."
Oh, quirky. No, that works too. Quirky to me is like, oh, she's a little quirky. Like, oh, like if the book was a
Yeah.
girl like you were talking to, you're like, oh, you're a little quirky. And
Yes.
that's why I picked Trust the Emerald Sea.
That's fair, that's fair.
So I've already talked about this. Yes, like so quirky.
Very, very
Every
unique.
every character in this book is a little quirked out.
Yes.
And so yeah, I it reminds me. I almost chose this for nostalgic actually
Mhm.
because it reads a lot like a fairy tale your grandma would have read you when you slept over at her house or something. Like I don't know. So,
Yeah.
yeah, trust the Emerald Sea. I'm gonna have to go with that. I won't talk too much because Aubrey did a great job at explaining it. So, but yeah, that's my quirky rec.
Quirky. Okay, yeah, so I did this wrong. If I feel like I'm quirky and I'm pick me and I'm like, "Look at what I'm reading." I am going to pick up either, like, a very literature fantasy book. So I have, like, Cersei. Because this is like I'm in the cafe shop, look at me. She's so, like, quirky and
I'm
smart and
different.
special
Yeah.
and different and pick me if I'm reading Greek mythology at a cafe in public. So, so smart. Or I would recommend, like, a poetry book because I think that's very, like, different to be sitting and, like, reading, and I own it, and I don't know where it went, but Bright Dead Things by Ada Limon, um, is a great, like, I'd say introduction to poetry book. I wouldn't necessarily read it front to back. I did when I read it, but I'd recommend to kind of, like, skip around and try to see, like, what poems, like, are calling out to you and, like, themes because you don't necessarily have to read it all, but I would just, like, kinda, like, skim through it and sit with it, but I'd only spend, like, like, an hour just looking at each one and,
Yeah.
like, skimming. I wouldn't, like, I had to read it for class, and I had to read every single poem, and
You're like, all right, every third one hit.
okay. Yeah.
Poetry's funny like that. No, that works. That's how you perceived it. That's fine. Our emotions are how we feel
She's like,
them.
"You fucked it up a little bit, but whatever."
Stop.
I
Like,
think quirky that way, I would've picked Trust too.
yeah, it was like, what's the quirkiest book I've read? And I'm like, oh, this feels very like, oh, okay, we're doing that. Okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I'm trying to think of another one, and, like, maybe, like, Alice in Wonderland.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, something like that. I know I love looking at all of them and being like, which one?
My favorite thing is just to turn my head and stare at my bookshelves. I actually do that often.
I do
And
it
Jacob
all
will
the
be like,
time.
"What are you doing?" Because we're just on the couch. And I'm like, "Just looking at my
I'm
books."
just looking at my books. All right, our second to last one
Yes.
is maybe something similar to like the deep philosophical, but maybe
Mhm.
more like you're not really like in your bag thinking, but more so like I'm curious. Like, oh, I'm in this
Yeah.
curious mood. Like, this curiosity of maybe a new genre or a curiosity of a new world or
Yeah.
experiencing something new. Like curiosity is an amazing thing and it can lead us to find new books, new authors, new things.
Yes.
Um and this book I was given in middle school and I was not interested in it. And then turns out I was curious one day. It was like,
Yeah.
you know what? That book was given to me at a young age. Never read it. It looks cool, but I'm curious. What is this world about? Why does everyone say my life's going to change once I finish reading this book? I'm curious. And it
Mhm.
turns out the main character in this book The alchemist is curious. He is curious, and his curiosity takes him on an adventure to find the things he's looking for. Yeah, I mean, The Alchemist is something everyone should read. It's really short. It's going to take you a day to read. Um, you have to read this. Like you have to read The Alchemist at some point in your life, and The Alchemist will find you when you need it. That's just how it works. I mean, I marked this bitch up so much because I was like, wait, this small insignificant story means so much to me suddenly, and I don't know
Yeah.
why. And I remember sitting in my reading chair one night and I just like marked the shit out of it. I was like, wait, that means something. Like this quote. I'm just going to read a random quote. Ready? Life will be a party for you, a grand festival, because life is the moment we're living right now. What? Like what? His way isn't the
Damn.
same as mine, nor mine as his, but we're both in search of our personal legends, and I respect him for that. A boy's idea of man. Like like what? And it's like this, it's like a child story, but then
Yeah.
fucking this fucking shit. Anyways, it's really pretty looking too.
That's how little kids feel when they read like a story where like the moral is like very clear. Like they're reading like The Ugly Goose Duckling and they're like, "What?"
Yeah. The it's like the
The
adult version of
ugly
that.
duck was beautiful.
It's this, that at a certain point in our lives, we lose control of what's happening to us, and our lives become controlled by fate. That's the world's greatest lie. What? Anyways, guys, read if you're curious about anything, just read The Alchemist and then go from there.
That's amazing. I didn't do this prompt right either. Well, maybe.
No,
So
it's how you perceived it. It's okay.
you did say curious about a new genre, and
Genre,
that's how I
yes.
took it.
Yes.
So I have, if you are curious about the fantasy genre, I have two different starting places recommended
Yes.
for you.
I'm happy you went
If
there.
you are curious about the fantasy genre, but you're like, "Ugh," I met someone at school once and she gets really turned off in fantasy books when the people aren't humans, like when they aren't people and they have like my mom for the Akatar series, she'd be like, "Oh, is that those winged people?" And like it just icks them out and
Those
they just can't
fairies.
get into it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I respect that. I understand that not everyone can be as freaky as us. So I would say if you're looking to get into the fantasy genre, but you're like, I get like turned off by a lot of things like that, and maybe you just want to dip your toes, I would recommend Divine Rivals. This
Yes.
is a book that I see like all of my lit fic girlies loving as well. It reads like a very prosy historical fiction with a little bit with a dash of like magic. And so it is set on a high fantasy world, which means that it is not set in Earth, it is set in a different world, but it's going to feel like the 1920s. She wears a trench coat and she has kitten heels and she's walking on cobblestone. She is from a folklore novel. The main character Iris is a journalist and she decides to report and go to the front lines of this fantasy war between gods. Um, it's so good. It's romantic. It's got, I would say, more magical realism than a lot of high fantasy elements. I mean, the yes, there are gods that are like fighting one another ish, but we don't really see any of that. It just feels like a journalist in World War I who has a magic typewriter. And so I think that's a great introduction to the fantasy genre if you're a little cautious about fantasy. However, I would say if you're not cautious and you want to dive in head first, but you haven't read fantasy yet. You don't want a lot of like the you still
Crazy
want a
world building.
beginners. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But you want to be immersed. You want to feel almost like a kid again experiencing Narnia or Harry Potter or such. I would recommend The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. It's a short book. The prose is really great. And what's good about this book is that it is almost set in the real world. So the main character, Jude, is from Earth.
Yeah.
she talks about Uggs and fish sticks, and the prologue takes place just in like the normal world. And then they kind of transport. So it's like a portal story to Elfham, which is a island of fairies and magic and ruthlessness and wonder. And so I think this has a lot of those like wondrous, whimsical elements that you want out of a fantasy, but the main character is still a human and she still has all of like earthly mindsets and expectations, like their cell phones kind of thing. So I think that's a great introduction.
Yes, Crow Prince is great. Yeah, especially since Jude is coming from the mortal realm
Yeah.
versus like over
Mhm.
here. Yes.
Yeah, like ACOTAR I know people recommend a lot, but that is fully high fantasy and there's no like references back to Earth that I think that if you're uncomfortable,
with that.
like if you haven't done it yet, I think that it's a slower introduction. I will also say if you're curious about a genre different from fantasy and perhaps want to get into some more like nonfiction's a really hard genre to get into.
Yeah.
I have two feminist memoirs that I would recommend. Trigger warnings on both of them. The first one is The Other Side by Lacey Johnson, and the other one, I don't own it, but is Rabbit Heart by Christine Irvin. They are both. So, memoir is different than an autobiography because it's just forming a narrative over like a single like theme or aspect. It's not, this is what I did as a kid and this is up until I died.
Yeah. That's why
It's
memoirs are
very,
great.
yes, memoirs are so much more thematic, and both of them deal with feminist things. I think both of them have a female character who is kidnapped, who is sexually assaulted, and it's these really like dark, real things that happened in real life, and they are like sickening and heart wrenching and captivating. Um,
Yes.
so I'd recommend those
Curious
if you want to get into
reads.
nonfiction and you don't want to be bored out of your mind. You will not be bored reading those books.
All right. Well, I wanted to end this
Yes.
mood.
I'm just talking about
Switching gears. I know. I was like,
full
this
transition,
is a little,
actually.
this is a little awkward. Okay, so if you're
Yeah.
feeling hot and steamy, a little horned up, a little sexual, if you are into smut, which I think everyone is these days,
Everyone should be. There's nothing wrong with
there's
it.
nothing wrong with it.
Everyone deserves a little bit of smut.
Also, this is if you're feeling romantic, if you
Yes.
want to engage in some sort of personal, intimate activity. I could go on and give lots of book recommendations. But I have two.
Oh,
And
okay.
the one I just came up with literally 5 seconds ago because I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, no, I need to talk about this book. But I'm gonna start with this one.
Yes.
And it's
Okay.
because I'm I'm gonna pass the mic to Aubrey on the very smutty books because I feel like she's gonna be able to connect with that audience better. I love smut, but I love tension more than anything.
Yeah.
That is what
Yeah.
gets me hot and heavy. And not like a book. This book just did it best, and that's Fourth Wing. We already talked about Fourth Wing.
Yes.
This book kept me on the edge of my seat. I was
Mhm.
obsessed with the love interest. Obsessed. Oh, look at this! Like, if someone's watching, it gives me like nice
Yeah.
little
Like
lighting.
ink.
Thanks, Fourth Wing.
Oh my god, you're
I'm
glowing.
glowing. Fourth Wing, guys. I mean, ow. Fourth
Yeah.
Wing. Like, this is seriously like the best. The tension is amazing. We don't have to go into it anymore. Like, guys, if you want the tension, if you want to be like, ooh, ooh,
Yes.
that's it. Gives you the butterflies. My second one is actually, and I can't go too much into it because we're not giving spoilers this episode.
Okay.
Heir of Fire.
Mm. Okay.
Also Queen of Shadows. That is in
Also
the
Queen of
Throne of
Shadows.
Glass realm. There's a character in that series that really just, when I think about it, like Sarah J. Maas just perfectly wrote that out. anything Sarah J. Like A Court of Mist and
Yes.
Fury. But let's be honest,
Mhm.
the world's a little tired about hearing about A Court of Thorns and Roses, and so
Yeah. I'm kinda done with it.
the thing is, I'm not here to recommend A Court of Thorns and Roses because it's already been recommended to you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yes, of course we need to talk about that, but we're not. So I'm gonna flip it on its head and say, everyone, if you've not read Throne of Glass
Mhm.
yet, Heir of Fire, Queen of Shadows, that
This is your
whole
year.
situation,
Pick
especially
it up.
when they are like sleeping, they have to sleep in the same bed. Like, okay. So those are my read them. Duh.
Of course. I think that they are great books. If you like smut, these are bad recommendations. If you're
I know.
looking if you're horny and you want smut,
That's why I said I'm gonna
there's
give it to Aubrey because she'll give the real recommendations I can't
Fourth
give.
Wing has, I think, one graphic sex scene, and it is very short. It's
But
maybe a
but
page.
imagine how horny I was leading up to that.
But yes, the tension is definitely there. Throne of Glass does not have any graphic sex scenes.
No.
There is sex that happens on the page in, I think, Empire of Storms and maybe Kingdom of Ash, the last two books in the series, but they're not even like horny sex happening on
I
the page.
literally
Like
think
it's
my
just sex
love language
happening
is
on the
words of
page.
affirmation. So when a
Yeah.
guy's like,
Yeah.
"You're beautiful," I'm like, "Take me."
Take my clothes off.
That's why I was like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna give this to Aubrey to really get the real recommendation for
Yeah.
people who actually like smut.
Um, if I will so complete 180, and I don't even recommend this book, but I want to bring it up. If you really just want smut, I tried to read The Court of the Vampire Queen.
Oh my
That was my mistake because it does say erotica on it, and there actually isn't a chapter without a sex
god.
scene in it.
Yeah.
It's just sex. The way they save the day at the end is with what's a threesome with four people?
A foursome?
Whatever foursome. I was trying to do like a quadrupling sum, like a
Oh.
foursome. Yeah, a foursome's so easy. I'm so stupid. Okay.
An
They yeah,
orgy.
they yeah, an orgy. They saved the day with an orgy. My actual recommendation is one that I feel a little bad for, but if you're feeling horny, I think you should read A Shadow in the Ember by JLA.
Yes, I was going to, but I couldn't.
This one has so much tension
It's so
and the
good.
sex scenes are so good. I think JLA does sex really well on the page. She does a great job of blending emotions with more graphic sex scenes. Like her sex scenes are going to last multiple pages. She is getting into the details, but she's also like doing it with character in mind,
Yeah.
which I really appreciate. As good as this is, I will give a warning that we just read the last book in this series and it was absolute trash and it made you not like the series, which made you not care about the sex scenes.
Yeah.
But if you're just feeling horny and you are really good at skimming and skipping bad, boring chapters, I think this is
It's
good.
a
I
really
think her
good.
Trad Pub book, Fall of Ruin and Wrath, is amazing. I really liked the tension and the sex scenes in that one as well. From
J
Blood and Ash,
Yeah. From Blood and
if you're
Ash,
feeling
great book
horny,
for that.
I think they're great. Unfortunately, this series is declining over time, but especially if you can just do one and like maybe look at the synopsis for the rest of the series, JLA's your girl.
Yeah. Her top when it comes to JLA and her series, the first 3 are always great and then after
Yeah.
that they suck. So that's the recommendation. That is your prescription. Now you all know the prescription.
Yes.
Get back to us and let us know if you are healed. No, really, these are just our emotions and what we gravitate
Yeah.
towards. And when I have felt this way and I've read these books, I've been affirmed. So, this has been really fun. I want to do this again like a year and a half from now.
Yeah.
And kind of see what other books we collect along the way.
Mhm.
I am a mood reader through and through.
Yes.
So if a book finds me at the right place at the right time, it's gonna become a fave. So
Yes.
yes, please let us know what your mood reads are. Um,
Mhm.
Like, seriously, copy, paste the list, like, copy, paste
It's
the
just
list,
quirky.
like, let us know, and, yeah.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it. It helps us out so much. Subscribe. Let us know how you interpreted these moods and maybe like you go for something different because Peyton and I definitely had different answers. Thank you so much for joining us and happy reading.